afternoon here in my home office. This is Tracey Welson-Rossman from Chariot Solutions, coming here for Women's History Month. And I'm with one of my favorite people, Amy Cliett, who is the Director of TechGirlz and the Women in Tech Summit. Yay, I got it right. And I'm excited to have Amy here. It's been an incredibly, for those of you who don't know who TechGirlz is, Amy, can you tell us a little bit about what TechGirlz does and also the Women in Tech Summit?
Yes, absolutely. So TechGirlz, we are a nonprofit program that is designed to give girls in middle school an opportunity to explore technology. We want them to be excited about technology and to have a safe space for them to explore that. We do that through free open source curriculum that we provide to the community to use at their will, but then we also assist in scheduling and hosting workshops that the girls can come into and learn about all different types of technology. So it's a really great program. And then the Women in Tech Summit is a conference where it's a technical conference where all the speakers just happen to be women. And we have an amazing lineup coming up for our March Women in Tech Summit. We have 2 days of technical talks, and then we have a third day where we're going to have some hands-on workshops. So we're very excited about that.
Well, super. And I guess we should just put in there that we used to work together at TechGirlz and Women in Tech Summit, for those of you that don't know. We'll just get that out of the way. So the last year has been extremely interesting for all of us. But for an organization that is really, dependent or was really dependent on in-person learning, this year has been an extremely, you just could have given up and said, well, we're just going to wait. But that's not what happened. And you created a talk that's going to be at South by Southwest EDU March 9th, and then will be repurposed so that other people can see it, to talk about this pandemic pivot. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that panel, because you're working with some other groups that were also dependent on, working with girls in a live setting, and what the organizations learned of the role of technology, playing in how to connect communities. And I should also say that, not all of them were technology focused, but and I'll just a follow-up question, the piece of technology, as people who are trying to teach technology, has this empowered your girls even more to understand the power of tech?
It's interesting is a very good word to use for this past year. And, we had a lot of obviously kind of wild concerns in the beginning. And, I think that what we learned right away was just, we need to move. We didn't really have a lot of time for planning out different scenarios. It was, build the plane while it's flying, the term I've heard all year. And, it was just one of those things that we knew we had to do it. I always laugh because, I said that before the pandemic, it was kind of almost not written into our mission, but it was an unwritten thing that we were hands-on in person. That in person is such an important piece. And I still absolutely believe in that. But, we needed to have something for the interim. As I mentioned, we just kind of went forward with it. We said, this is what we're going to do. And the first workshop that we did outside of, or I should say inside the computer, was a success. Obviously lots of things that we learned from that first workshop that we needed to tweak. But at the end of the day, we showed up, we were there, and we showed the girls that we were still going to be there for them. To our surprise, I think the biggest surprise for me of what we learned is that the girls were not, they might've been Zoom fatigued, but that wasn't going to stop them from showing up. We just kind of imagined that maybe a month or two would go by and then they would say, okay, that's enough. I'm on school all day with Zoom or, whatever it is. And screen time is just, it's killing me. But that's completely not the case. We saw an increase in our girls, wanting to take the workshops, and an increase in girls taking multiple workshops, really kind of digging in. So we had, a couple of girls that took over 20 workshops, and, over 50 girls that took over 10 workshops. So, really, we saw a lot of in-depth, action. And then also seeing some of the girls taking what they were learning and then using it beyond just trying to, learn something new, but using it to keep themselves busy. One of our girls created a podcast herself. It's called Quarantine, like TEEN, which is so cute. But, that was something that she had learned through the podcasting workshop and through her experience, and realized that there were other people out there that she could help, and, kind of modeling what she was seeing happening. She did that herself. At some point after, after the smoke cleared, the initial smoke cleared, I started thinking about, like, what were other groups doing? My daughter, she's 10 this year, and she, for the first time, was able to sign up for Girls on the Run. And we were so excited. It was her first year. And of course, we know how that story ended with, the in-person piece of it. But one thing that I noticed was that they immediately took action too. That first week that they weren't able to be in person, it was a little rocky, but they went for it. And I really appreciated that. And they, kind of immediately went to work and created a bunch of resources at home and ways for your kids to keep moving, even though, not in person and with their friends. So that was really great. And, you kind of alluded to the fact that them in particular, they're not a tech organization. And they weren't big on tech, before. And now they've really, although they're using Zoom and, the kind of tools that I think we're all using, it still has been vital for them to be able to keep their program moving forward. So they're very excited that they were able to do that. And then, obviously staying in touch with people via Zoom and, staying in touch with the community is really important. So for some of us, it was just the tools that we used were just a conferencing software. But then we've gotten a little bit more in depth with some other tools as well. So I'll touch on those. So I mentioned, there was the Girls on the Run. The other groups that I reached out to were Philly Tech Sisters. They're a local organization in Philadelphia that teaches women coding. And great program. The woman who runs it, Ashley, she is just amazing. But it's just her, so she's doing all this and trying to do this, I say just her, she has people helping her, but she's very much, doing a lot of this work, Ashley.
She's the force.
Yes. So, she, had to figure out how she was going to make this work too. And she actually ended up partnering with us to get a mom and daughter workshop going and doing that virtually. And I think that helped, kind of get things moving for her in that way. And then she realized that there was a lot more that she could be doing and a lot more she could offer still virtually, keeping everybody safe, but, still giving back to her community. So that was really amazing. Black Girls Code, I got to speak with Isis Miller from Black Girls Code, who had the privilege of starting in January or February, right before the pandemic hit. So she really, I don't think she's sat down since she started. But, for her to come in, it was, in the discussion that we had, I think, we discovered that it might've been a little bit easier for her coming in new because she wasn't already in this, stuck in this old way of doing things.
Right.
But they, again, hit the ground running and really, utilizing all of the tools that they have, virtually tools. Some of the things that we've really enjoyed at TechGirlz might not be tools that everybody would want to use, but we've really enjoyed things like Slack, being able to stay in touch with our volunteers on a very timely basis is really important. To have that community feel, you're not seeing people in person anymore, and you really need to figure out a way to keep that energy up. It's very difficult, but we're managing. And, Slack is one of those ways that we're doing that.
Right.
We have found a plethora of like weird little online games, conversation starters, things like that to really kind of keeping the energy up, making sure people don't get bored, whether it's our volunteers or our students or even, my team. We do a lot to make sure that we're again, trying to keep that feeling like we're not missing being in person, even though we all really are. So it's been a really a great kind of ride to see that. Um, Along the way, and like, some of the other things that we've learned are, like, we can't do it alone. We absolutely need our community, and tapping into different resources, even if it is as simple as reaching out to Black Girls Code or Philly Texas or Girls on the Run and saying, hey, how are you handling this?
Right.
It's so important, and for us to be able to have each other in that way, is really big. And sometimes it's just a matter of, hey, are you okay? That was one thing, in my conversations with the wonderful folks from the other organizations. I realized that some of them were, really kind of stressed and taking it all on. So just having that conversation of like, yes, me too. I see you. This is what I'm doing to try to combat this. And this is what you can do too. Those conversations are really important. So Ashley and I used to have lunch together once in a while because she works near where I live, but we hadn't done that. And we really hadn't, been in close contact. So it was really great to have that excuse and then find out that, we had, more talking we needed to do. So it was really great.
So I think you're bringing up a couple of good points. One, which is a theme that I keep hearing as I'm doing these interviews, that technology is, of course, really important. It helps you innovate. But if we're not thinking about process, that's, that is something that needs to be put in this. The other thing that I know, that I believe, which is it's better to try.
Yes.
And fail. It's okay to fail or to tweak, but to make sure that we're allowing that audience to know, or the community to know, that this is an experiment, and asking for forgiveness.
Absolutely.
Before we start, I honestly feel like right now the people are just willing to forgive you. They're just happy to have this. And if it's not perfect, I think sometimes we get stuck in our old ways because we're afraid of the perfect.
Yes. There's a saying you always say, and I have kind of aggressively borrowed it from you, is, don't let perfection be the enemy of good. Right. And it's absolutely something that I believe in wholeheartedly and intentionally, every day. So like one of the, the things that like, I try to focus on just kind of yes last year. It's just, can we try this? Yes. Can we do this? Yes. Yes. All of it. We weren't afraid to get away from what our norms were, because they didn't matter at this time. What mattered was that we were still getting in front of the girls, that we were still giving them what they needed and feeding them in the way that they needed. So like, all of the other pieces that we would normally be like, that doesn't follow protocol, this doesn't do this, obviously not breaking any laws or rules, but
Correct.
within our own processes, we can change the processes.
Correct.
Try it all. We did tech pods. We realized that some of the girls, they were really enjoying seeing each other. You have a girl to get on and say, hey, weren't you in last week's JavaScript class? And then they would maybe exchange information, and some of them have become friends, which is just a beautiful thing, which wouldn't probably have happened for girls to know each other from so far away. I mean, there was a workshop that, I love telling this story because it was just so beautiful. It was a workshop. There was a girl in California that was eating breakfast. And then there was a girl in India that was about to go to bed when the workshop was over. And they were in the same space, and they connected, so that's just powerful. And for them to have that in middle school is really just an amazing thing. But, with that, we found that the girls really wanted to have a little bit more of like quality time. So we tried this tech pod, really thinking about the learning pods that everybody was considering. I personally didn't do them, but I know a lot of families did. So we were thinking about that kind of feel, but virtually again. So the same girls would be in the same group for 6 weeks at a time. That was one of our, yes, let's try it and see what happens, that we did in the fall. And now we're about to run our second group this spring, and we're so excited. And we're taking what we learned from the fall, we're building on it. We're very thankful and grateful for the feedback that we get. One of the things that is kind of beautiful about our process is that every single workshop, the girls give us feedback. So we constantly have this running feedback that we can always make changes and make pivots from there.
When TechGirl started, definitely the reason for the in-person community was because girls didn't know each other, and honestly the technology wasn't there,
Yeah, that's
right?
true.
So to be able to use the technology to feel, to expand the borders, so to speak, is really amazing. And the other thing that you've been able to do by doing this pivot is you've been able to expand the volunteers.
Absolutely. Yes. We found a lot of people, we were a little concerned about that as well. Well, that's a big lesson I learned, is that all the things that I was concerned about, I could have not thought about, and thought about, what's going to surprise me instead. But the volunteers in the beginning, we had a lot of volunteers. And again, we were nervous because we were thinking, okay, volunteers have this time because everybody's home. But once things start going back to normal, we're not going to have the same amount of volunteers. And we were absolutely wrong. Folks are looking for things to do, beyond what they would normally do. They're looking for things that are virtual now. So we were able to post on a couple of virtual volunteer websites, and people found us that way. And word of mouth has certainly been a huge driver of volunteers finding us. But it's been really great. Our volunteers, we increased about 20% over the previous year in number of volunteers, and the engagement of those volunteers is so much more than the previous years.
Which is that, that is mind blowing in itself.
Yeah.
Because the volunteers has always been the lifeline.
Yeah.
But you've been able to really access more, and geographically as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this will be the last question. I know that you and I could talk for like another hour.
Always.
Um, where do you see? So let's talk January of next year. Where do you see online fitting into live? What are you thinking?
I like this question because it's assuming we are going to be able to be live in January next year. I love it. Which we are certainly like this. So we have realized that with the virtual delivery, we've been able to reach girls that were never able to get to us before. And we have no intention of letting them down when we're back in person. But we definitely are going to absolutely keep the virtual workshops, and keep an aspect of that. It's hard to tell right now exactly what percentage will be virtual versus in person, but as much as we need, I'll say that, as much as we need, we will keep the virtual going. And I think that even these students that were in person with us before, I think we're going to start to see them, maybe preferring to be online for some workshops anyway, because, the middle school girls, they're at that age where they're not quite driving yet, right? They're dependent on their parents being able to deliver them to XYZ space. So, even the girls that are in, an area where we might have a lot of in-person workshops, I imagine there are some times where they wish they could have joined virtually.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, the idea of being flexible and understanding that there may not be a one size fits all answer to all of this. And, unfortunately, to have put this in place because of the circumstances,
Yes,
but really understanding that this is, that next sort of growth plateau.
absolutely.
Um, and, being open to trying things. And, I think the one thing we found is that the girls have always been so open
Hmm.
to whatever was thrown at them.
Absolutely.
And certainly you're showcasing that is the case.
Yes. You know how they're kind of big hubbub about mobile first development.
Right.
When you were designing a website, always mobile first, right? So now my kind of twist on that is virtual first. So we want to create our curriculum that virtual first delivery, and then it's so much easier to tweak it for in person than it is the other way around. So that's the way we're going.
Well, I think that is a great way to end. Um, I'd love to check back in another 6 months. I think this is really important. And I'd love to be able to talk also about your thoughts of the future of women in tech.
Absolutely.
Um, after post pandemic and what you're seeing.
Yes, absolutely. Let's do it.
Well, thanks for having us. I also just want to plug Women in Tech Summit, which is March.
24th, 25th, and 26th.
Thank you, because I'm calendar challenged. I was pretty close, but I was a day off. Tickets are still available as of this taping, so please go on. And all of the registration fees benefit TechGirlz, so it's a virtuous circle. Well, thank you, Amy, and best of luck with the talk at South by.
Thank you.